The night was quiet on the human colony world of Arcanus, yet Captain Daniel Hayes could not sleep. He had fought battles before, but tonight was different. He had received a strange message. The alien council had summoned him, alone. No reason was given, no explanation, just an order. Report to the Grand Chamber at dawn. When he entered the alien city, he felt the eyes of thousands on him. The towering spires of glass and metal rose high above, glowing in pale blue light. Aliens of every shape stopped to stare, whispering in their own tongues as he walked past. Some looked curious, some looked angry, and some afraid. Why afraid, he thought, but no one dared approach him. The chamber doors opened with a heavy sound. Inside stood the alien leaders, tall figures cloaked in silver and gold, but in the center stood one unlike the others. She was the ambassador, the youngest in their history. Her eyes glowed faintly with light, her face calm but unreadable. When she turned toward him, the room went silent. It was as if the entire hall was holding its breath. Daniel saluted, unsure what else to do, but the ambassador did not bow, did not speak. Instead, she raised her hand and stepped closer. The council members shifted nervously, some even muttered in protest. "Don't," one of them whispered. But she ignored them. Daniel felt his heart race. Why did they summon him, a simple soldier, to meet their highest representative? The ambassador stretched out her hand. Her fingers were long and delicate, marked with glowing patterns that seemed to move like living veins. Daniel hesitated, but training pushed him forward. He extended his hand to greet her, just as he would with any diplomat. The moment their palms touched, the world seemed to shatter. A shock of light burst from their skin, bright enough to blind everyone in the hall. The chamber shook as if struck by thunder. "Da!" Neil gasped as warmth shot up his arm, burning but not painful. The ambassador's eyes widened, glowing brighter than before. Her lips parted in shock, but she said nothing. The council members cried out in panic. Some rushed forward, others backed away in fear. The light faded slowly, leaving silence heavier than before. Daniel pulled back his hand, breathing hard. "What was that?" he whispered. But no one answered. The ambassador stared at him, her expression unreadable, almost fearful. Finally she spoke, her voice trembling for the first time. "It cannot be undone," she said softly. Her words echoed across the chamber, leaving Daniel even more confused. Two guards rushed toward him, weapons raised, but the ambassador lifted her hand. "Stop," she commanded. The guards froze instantly, lowering their weapons though their faces showed anger. The council began arguing in their strange language, voices sharp and fearful. Daniel stood in the center of it all, feeling the weight of something he could not understand. The ambassador turned back to him, her glowing eyes fixed on his face. "You do not know what you have done," she said, her voice almost a whisper. Daniel felt his chest tighten. "What do you mean?" he asked. But she did not answer. Instead, she stepped closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "Our fates are now tied," she whispered. Then she turned away, leaving him in silence. Daniel stood frozen, his hands still tingling with strange heat. Every alien eye in the chamber was on him, some filled with hatred, others with terror. He had come here expecting a simple meeting, but deep down, he realized, his life had just changed forever. The council chamber did not calm after the light faded. Whispers turned into shouts, and shouts turned into chaos. Alien leaders pointed at Daniel, their voices filled with anger and fear. To them, the handshake was no accident. It was a sign, a forbidden event that should never have happened. Daniel stood in the middle, confused. He wanted to demand answers, but every time he opened his mouth, the aliens spoke louder. Some accused him of trickery, others demanded his arrest. One elder even shouted, "End him now before it spreads!" Daniel clenched his fists, his soldier's instincts telling him to fight. But against an entire council, he knew fighting meant death. The ambassador, however, raised her hand again. Instantly the noise died as though every throat had been cut silent. Her glowing eyes swept across the chamber, hard and commanding. "This meeting is over," she declared. The council erupted again, but none dared oppose her. Daniel felt a chill. Why were they so afraid of her? Guards surrounded him, not with open hostility but with tense caution. They did not touch him, yet their weapons hummed with deadly energy. The ambassador stepped closer, her voice low but firm. "You must leave this hall now," she said. Daniel frowned. What just happened? Why me? Her eyes flickered with conflict as though she wanted to speak but couldn't. Finally, she whispered, "You will know soon enough, but not here." He was escorted out of the chamber. The alien crowd outside had already heard. Their eyes were wide with terror as he passed. Some whispered curses. Others pulled their children away. One even spat at the ground near him. Daniel felt the sting of being treated as a disease. What had he done with a simple handshake? Back at the human quarters in the alien city, rumors spread fast. Soldiers asked him what happened, but Daniel had no clear answer. His commander, Dema. That night, Daniel could not rest. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the ambassador's glowing gaze, her words repeated in his mind. It cannot be undone. Our fates are now tied. What did that mean? Why did the council panic as if a great curse had been unleashed? Near midnight, his door slid open silently. Daniel jumped to his feet, hand on his sidearm, but it was her, the ambassador, cloaked in shadow. She entered without fear, closing the door behind her. "You are not safe," she said, her voice soft but urgent. Daniel's heart raced. "Not safe? From who? Your people? Mine?" She shook her head slowly. "From both," she whispered. She sat across from him, her hands trembling. "Our laws forbid." "What just happened between us?" she said. Daniel frowned. "A handshake? That's all?" Her eyes burned with quiet fire. "No, human. Not a handshake. A binding." Daniel froze, the word heavy and strange. "A binding?" "Yes," she whispered. "Your touch has awakened a bond, one that even I cannot break. It means my body has already begun to change." Daniel felt his chest tighten. "You're saying you're—" The ambassador closed her eyes, fighting tears. "Yes," she breathed. "I carry the seed of a child that is not only mine, but yours." The silence after her words was heavier than the night itself. Daniel's mind spun, struggling to believe it. He had never imagined something so impossible. But looking into her glowing eyes, he knew she spoke the truth. A sudden alarm echoed through the city outside. The ambassador stood quickly, her cloak swirling. "They know," she said, her voice urgent. "They will come for us both, and they will not stop." Daniel's blood ran cold. The forbidden reaction was no longer a secret. It was the beginning of a hunt. The alarm outside grew louder, echoing through the alien city like a cry of war. Daniel moved to the window and saw lights flaring across the towers. Patrol ships rose into the night sky, their search beams cutting through the darkness. The city was awake, restless, and afraid. He turned to the ambassador, his voice sharp. "Tell me what's happening. What is this binding? What does it mean for us?" The ambassador hesitated, her glowing eyes trembling with conflict. For a moment, she looked less like a powerful diplomat and more like a woman carrying a heavy burden. She lowered her cloak, revealing the glowing lines on her skin that pulsed like living fire. "This," she whispered, "is the mark of our bond. It cannot be hidden now." Daniel stared at the strange light running across her arms and neck. The patterns looked almost alive, shifting with her heartbeat. "Your people saw this happen in the chamber," she continued. "To them, it means prophecy or destruction. No alien leader has ever bonded with a human before. Our laws forbid it because it is feared for what it could bring." Daniel's voice hardened. "And this child you spoke of, is it real?" Her lips pressed into a thin line, then she nodded slowly. "Yes, Daniel, it has already begun. The bond ensures life. My body will nurture a child that belongs to both our kinds." The words hung in the air like thunder. Daniel felt his stomach twist. He was a soldier, trained to face death, not this. Yet deep inside, he felt a spark of something. Fear, yes, but also responsibility. "A child," he muttered. "A human and alien child." Before he could speak further, a sharp knock shook the door. "Ambassador, open at once," a guard shouted. She stiffened, eyes wide. "They found me," she whispered. Daniel grabbed his sidearm. "Stay back," he ordered. But the ambassador raised her hand. "No, if they see us together, it—" After a long descent, the tunnel opened into a hidden chamber beneath the city. Here, glowing crystals lit the walls, casting soft light over ancient carvings. Daniel stepped closer, realizing the carvings told a story. Humans were not drawn in them, only the ambassador's people. But he saw something familiar, figures with glowing patterns, holding children with strange, mixed features. His eyes widened. "These are hybrids," he whispered. She nodded slowly. "Our history hides what your leaders do not know. It has happened before, long ago, but every record was buried, every child destroyed. They feared what such children could become." Daniel's fists clenched. "They'll try to do the same to you, and the child." Her eyes met his, glowing with both fear and determination. "That is why I need you," she said, her voice breaking. "I cannot protect this child alone, but you, Daniel. You are its father, and you are human. With you, there may still be hope." The sound of boots echoed in the tunnel behind them. Growing closer, Daniel pulled his weapon free, standing between her and the sound. His heart pounded as he whispered, "Then we run, Ambassador. We run, and we don't stop." The tunnel shook as heavy boots echoed closer. Daniel tightened his grip on his sidearm, his mind racing. He had been a soldier for years, but this was no normal mission. This was survival, for him, for the Ambassador, and for a child that should not even exist. The Ambassador placed a hand on his shoulder, her glowing patterns flickering softly. "We must keep moving," she urged, her voice low but firm. Daniel nodded, leading her deeper into the underground passages. Every step filled him with conflict. He was trained to follow orders, to protect humanity. But now, protecting this alien woman might mean betraying his own command. They reached a narrow split in the tunnels, one path leading upward, another descending into darkness. Daniel stopped, listening to the echoes. The sounds of the guards were growing louder, closer. "We can't outrun them forever," he muttered. The Ambassador studied him, her glowing eyes unreadable. "Then what will you do, human? Hand me over? Pretend this never happened?" Her words cut deep. Daniel turned to her, frustration burning in his chest. "I don't even understand what did happen. One handshake, and suddenly my life is tied to yours. Now you tell me you carry my child, and your people want us dead for it. How am I supposed to decide what's right?" She stepped closer, her voice softer, trembling. "You feel it, don't you? The bond, the pull between us. It is not only my burden, it is yours. And the child is innocent. If you turn away now, it will not survive. Do you have the heart to let them kill it?" Daniel's throat tightened. He thought of the war zones he had fought in. He had seen children die before, powerless to save them. The memory always haunted him. Could he let it happen again? This time, to his own blood? The tunnel lights flickered as shadows appeared at the bend behind them. The guards were coming fast, weapons. Finally, when his weapon overheated and sparks burned his hand, he knew he could not hold them forever. He threw a smoke charge, filling the tunnel with thick white clouds. Then he ran, slipping into the darkness where the Ambassador had gone. They emerged into an ancient cavern lit by the glow of crystals. The Ambassador was waiting, her face pale with fear. "You stayed," she whispered, almost in disbelief. Daniel leaned against the wall, breathing hard. "Of course I stayed. If I left, I'd never forgive myself." She stepped closer, her voice trembling. "Then you have chosen, not duty to your command, but duty to us." Daniel looked into her glowing eyes, conflicted yet resolute. "I don't know what the future holds, but I won't let them take you or the child, not while I'm alive." The Ambassador's lips parted as if to speak, but before she could, a deep rumble shook the cavern. The walls trembled and dust fell from above. Daniel raised his weapon again. "They found us," he said, and in his heart, he knew. His true war was only beginning. The cavern shook as distant explosions echoed through the tunnels. Daniel steadied himself against the glowing crystal wall, sweat running down his face. He had fought before, but never for something like this. Every breath reminded him. He was no longer fighting only for himself. The Ambassador placed a trembling hand on her stomach. Her glowing patterns pulsed brighter than before. Daniel frowned, stepping closer. "What's wrong?" he asked, his voice sharp with worry. She looked away, her expression filled with both fear and wonder. "It has begun," she whispered. "The child. It is already growing faster than expected." Daniel's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean faster?" Her eyes glowed brighter, reflecting the light of the cavern. "Our bond, it speeds the process. What normally takes years is happening in days. The child within me is already taking form." Daniel felt a heavy weight settle on his shoulders. He was still trying to understand the impossible truth of becoming a father to a hybrid child. Now he had to face the reality that time itself was against them. "If the Council discovers this, they'll see it as proof," he muttered. "Proof that humans should never have contact with your kind." The Ambassador stepped closer, her voice low but steady. "Not proof of fear, Daniel, proof of hope, don't you see? This child could be the bridge between our worlds." Before Daniel could answer, a loud crack split the air. Part of the cavern wall collapsed, revealing a hidden door sealed by ancient markings. The Ambassador gasped, her eyes wide with recognition. This is a sanctuary," she whispered. "Our ancestors built places like this to hide the forbidden children. Perhaps one survived here, long ago." They pushed through the broken entrance, entering a vast chamber filled with stone carvings and glowing pools. Strange symbols lined the walls, telling story. As of children born with mixed blood, Daniel studied them, his chest tight. The carvings showed both wonder and tragedy. Children with power, hunted by their own people. Your history buried the truth, Daniel muttered. They feared what they couldn't control. The ambassador touched the carvings with trembling hands. Her voice broke as she whispered, "And now I carry the same fate, but this time I will not let them take the child." Daniel watched her, torn between fear and admiration. She was fragile and yet unyielding. Even hunted, even carrying a child that could change everything, she stood tall. For the first time, Daniel realized it wasn't only her people who feared change, maybe humans would too. The sound of boots and metal echoed again, closer now. The enemy was not far behind. Daniel moved quickly, setting up what few traps and charges he had left. "We can't stay here," he said firmly. "They'll find us no matter how deep we go." The ambassador nodded reluctantly, her hand still resting on her stomach. "But every step grows harder," she admitted. "The child's energy drains me. It feels alive in ways I cannot explain. It speaks to me in dreams." Daniel paused, staring at her. "What do you mean, speaks?" Her eyes glowed brighter, her voice trembling. "I see visions of two worlds torn apart and a child standing between them. Sometimes the visions are full of war, other times peace." Her words sent a chill through Daniel's chest. If the child truly carried such power, then their journey was more dangerous than he thought. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about the future of both species. The walls shook again as explosions thundered closer. Daniel pulled her gently by the arm. "Then we don't have a choice. We protect the child no matter what." The ambassador met his gaze, her lips parting in a trembling breath. "You speak like a father already," she whispered. Daniel tightened his grip on his weapon, his eyes hard. "Because I am," he said. And with those words they plunged deeper into the unknown tunnels, carrying not just their lives but the fragile hope of two worlds. The tunnels grew colder as Daniel and the ambassador pressed forward. Behind them, the echoes of soldiers' boots and metallic voices grew louder. The hunt had truly begun. Daniel knew the enemy would never stop, not until the ambassador and the unborn child were destroyed. He led her through twisting corridors, his weapon raised, every nerve on edge. The ambassador's breathing was heavier now, her hand often resting on her stomach. Daniel slowed his pace to match hers. "Are you holding up?" he asked. She gave a small nod, though her glowing eyes revealed her weakness. "The child drains me," she admitted softly, "but it also fills me with strength I cannot explain. Every step feels like I walk for two." They reached an opening where the tunnel split into three paths. Daniel crouched, studying the tracks on the ground. He saw the faint glow of alien boots. The hunters were spreading out. "They're surrounding us," he muttered. The ambassador touched his arm gently, her voice steady despite her fear. "Then we must move where they least expect. Choose the darkness, Daniel. It will hide us." Daniel chose the narrowest tunnel, its walls jagged and damp. The glow from the crystals dimmed here, leaving only shadow. Every sound echoed. The drip of water, the scrape of boots, the hum of enemy scanners. He motioned for silence, guiding her carefully, but in the distance, voices carried through the cavern air. "They went this way!" a soldier barked. Lights flickered as enemy beams swept through the tunnels. The hunters were closing in fast. Daniel clenched his jaw, pulling the ambassador into a small alcove. They pressed against the stone, listening as the footsteps neared. The ambassador's patterns glowed faintly in the dark, threatening to give them away. Daniel removed his jacket quickly, wrapping it around her to hide the light. "Stay still," he whispered. The glow dimmed under the cloth, but her trembling remained. For long minutes the soldiers passed close, their weapons ready. Daniel held his breath, finger tight on the trigger. If one beam of light landed on them, it would mean death. Finally, the soldiers moved on, their voices fading into the distance. Daniel exhaled, pulling the ambassador gently forward, but his relief was short-lived. A sudden mechanical whir filled the tunnel. From above, small drone scouts dropped into the passage, their red eyes scanning. Daniel cursed under his breath. "They're releasing seekers." The drones floated silently, scanning every surface. One paused near the ambassador, its eye glowing brighter. Daniel acted instantly, raising his weapon and firing. The blast shattered the drone into sparks, but the sound echoed like thunder. The other drones whirled toward them, alarms blaring. "They found us!" Daniel shouted, grabbing her hand. They ran deeper into the tunnels as beams of light struck the walls. Energy blasts rained around them, rocks collapsing from the ceiling. Daniel shielded the ambassador with his body, firing back as they sprinted. Her strength was fading fast, but her determination burned brighter. "We cannot run forever," she cried. Daniel gritted his teeth. Then we make a stand. They burst into a vast cavern lit by a glowing underground river. The rushing water cast eerie light across the stone. Daniel pulled her behind a boulder, reloading his weapon. The drone swarmed in first, followed by armored soldiers. The hunt had reached its peak. Daniel fired shot after shot, dropping enemies with deadly precision. But they kept coming, more and more pouring into the cavern. The ambassador pressed her back to the wall, her hand glowing brightly against her stomach. Her voice rose above the chaos, filled with fear and defiance. They will not stop until the child is gone. Daniel's chest burned with fury. He had fought for his people, for duty, for orders. But now, for the first time, he fought for something greater. He shouted over the roar of battle. "Then they'll have to kill me first!" He charged forward, unleashing every ounce of strength he had left. The cavern filled with fire and smoke as the battle raged. Behind him, the ambassador's patterns glowed like a star in the dark. The hunt had begun, but so had the fight for the child's survival. Smoke and fire filled the cavern as Daniel fought against wave after wave of enemy soldiers. His weapon hummed with heat, each shot echoing through the underground chamber. But for every soldier he struck down, two more seemed to appear. The hunt was no longer quiet. It was a storm, and he stood in the middle of it, refusing to fall. The ambassador crouched behind the stone wall, her hands glowing as she shielded her stomach. Her face was pale, but her eyes never left him. He fought not as a soldier following orders, but as a man protecting what was now his family. Every move screamed defiance, every breath carried the promise. They will not take her, they will not take the child. The cavern trembled with a new sound, a low rumble that grew into a roar. Daniel glanced toward the underground river. Its waters swelled, surging against the rocky banks. The charges, he realized. The enemy had planted explosives in the tunnels above. The blast had cracked the stone and stirred the hidden waters. If the river broke free, the entire cavern would flood. The ambassador staggered to her feet, her voice breaking through the chaos. "Daniel, we must leave, now!" He fired a final burst at the nearest soldiers before running to her side. Her body trembled with exhaustion, but her grip on his arm was firm. Together they stumbled toward the far side of the cavern, where a narrow passage glowed faintly, their only chance of escape. Behind them, the enemy shouted, "Do not let them reach the tunnels!" Blasts of energy seared the ground at their heels. Daniel shielded the ambassador with his body as stones splintered around them. One bolt grazed his shoulder, burning through his armor. He bit down on the pain, pulling her forward. "I'm not stopping," he growled through clenched teeth. "Not while I breathe." They reached the passage just as the underground river burst its banks. A wall of water thundered into the cavern, sweeping soldiers and drones away in its fury. Daniel pulled the ambassador into the narrow tunnel. The roar of rushing water followed them, filling the air with deafening sound. The ground shook as the flood swallowed the cavern they had just escaped, but they kept running, gasping for breath, every step fueled by desperation. At last, the tunnel opened into a hidden chamber high above the river. Here, ancient machines lay silent, their shapes half buried in stone. The ambassador leaned against the wall, her body trembling. Daniel knelt beside her, concern sharp in his voice. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head weakly. "No, not me," she whispered, her hand on her stomach. "The child. It grows restless. The bond has made it stronger, but it also draws attention. They can sense us, Daniel, no matter where we run." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Then we stop running," he said firmly. "We find a way out of this city and off this planet. If they want a war, they'll get one. But not here, not now. I need to get you and the child somewhere safe." The ambassador looked at him, her glowing eyes softening. Her voice trembled as she asked, "Why do you fight for us, Daniel? You could leave me, return to your people, and live free of this curse. Why carry this burden?" Daniel met her gaze without hesitation. "Because it's not a curse," he said. "It's my child, our child, and because you trusted me when no one else would, I won't betray that trust." For the first time since the binding, her lips curved into a faint smile. In that moment, the fear and chaos around them seemed to fade, but only for a heartbeat. The sound of heavy machinery echoed from deeper in the tunnels. Daniel turned sharply, his weapon rising again. "They're bringing reinforcements," he muttered. The ambassador's smile vanished, replaced with grim determination. "Then we must escape this city before dawn, or we will never escape at all." Daniel nodded, pulling her close as they prepared to move again. The enemy had unleashed their hunt, but Daniel had already made his choice. This was no longer just a mission. This was survival, family, and the first step toward a future no one could yet imagine. The tunnels carried them higher, away from the roar of the flooded cavern. Daniel guided the ambassador through winding passages, always listening, always alert. Every shadow felt dangerous. Every echo sounded like footsteps. He knew the enemy would not give up the chase, but for a brief moment, he believed they were one step ahead. At last, they reached a steel hatch, half buried in stone. The ambassador touched the glowing markings on its surface. The door opened with a hiss, revealing a hidden chamber. Inside, old machines hummed faintly, and waiting for them, two alien figures in guard uniforms. Daniel's weapon came up instantly, but the ambassador raised her hand. "Wait, these are allies," she said, her voice soft, almost relieved. The guards lowered their helmets, revealing familiar faces. One of them bowed deeply. "Ambassador, we were sent by those who still believe in the old prophecy." Daniel didn't lower his weapon right away. He scanned their eyes, their movements. Trust did not come easily. The taller guard stepped forward. "The council is in chaos. Some demand your execution, but others whisper of protection. We were sent to guide you out of the city, to the outer gates." The ambassador placed a hand on Daniel's arm. "They are telling the truth," she said. Daniel reluctantly lowered his weapon but did not holster it. "Fine," he muttered. "But if this is a trap, I'll know." The group moved together through hidden corridors. The guards seemed to know every path. They avoided patrols, slipped past checkpoints. For a moment, Daniel allowed himself to believe they might finally escape. But then, as they reached a chamber near the city's edge, the truth shattered. The taller guard pressed his hand against a wall panel, sealing the doors behind them. Daniel frowned, his instincts screaming danger. "What are you doing?" he demanded, weapon rising again. The guard turned, his face no longer calm but cold. "Ending this before it grows worse," he said flatly. "You should never have touched her, human. The child must not live." The ambassador gasped, stepping back. "You swore loyalty," she cried. The guard sneered. "Loyalty to our people, not to corruption. The prophecy is a curse. If the child is born, it will destroy us all." Before Daniel could fire, the second guard moved, but instead of attacking Daniel, he spun on his partner, blade drawn. "Enough," he shouted, his voice raw with emotion. "This is not what we swore. The prophecy speaks of hope, not destruction. I will not betray her." Steel clashed as the two guards fought violently. Sparks lit the chamber as their blades struck again and again. Daniel pulled the ambassador back, shielding her as the duel raged. The loyal guard was skilled but outmatched in size. With a final strike, he was thrown against the wall, blood running down his armor. The betrayer turned toward Daniel and the ambassador, blade dripping. His eyes burned with fanatical rage. "Give me the child," he snarled. Daniel stepped forward, weapon aimed squarely. "You'll have to kill me first," he growled. The guard charged, but before he could strike, the wounded ally rose weakly from the floor. With his last strength, he drove his blade through the betrayer's chest. The fanatical guard froze, eyes wide with shock, before collapsing to the ground. The loyal guard fell beside him, coughing blood. His glowing eyes dimming, he turned to the ambassador. "My life, for yours," he whispered. Then he was still. The ambassador knelt beside him, tears shining in her glowing eyes. Daniel stood silent, his jaw clenched. He had trusted no one, and now his instincts were proven right. Even allies could turn into enemies. The ambassador rose slowly, her voice trembling but resolute. "This will not be the last betrayal," she said. "The child is both hope and fear, and many will kill to decide which it becomes." Daniel tightened his grip on his weapon. "Then we'll trust no one but ourselves," he replied. The ambassador nodded, her hand resting gently on her stomach. Her glow pulsed faintly in the dark chamber. They had survived this betrayal, but Daniel knew the war for the child's life had only just begun. The chamber lay silent after the clash of blades. The smell of smoke and blood lingered in the air. Daniel stood over the bodies of the fallen guards, his weapon still raised, but the only sound now was the ragged breath of the ambassador. She leaned against the wall, her hand pressed to her stomach. Her glowing patterns pulsed faster, brighter, like fire spreading beneath her skin. Daniel rushed to her side, worry sharp in his voice. "What's happening to you?" Her lips trembled as she whispered, "The child. It is coming sooner than I thought. It can no longer wait." Daniel froze, shock striking him like a bolt of lightning. "Here? Now? We're surrounded by enemies." Her glowing eyes locked on his. "There is no choice," she whispered. "If the child is to live, it must be born here, in this place of prophecy." The ground shook as explosions thundered in the distance. The enemy was closing in again. Daniel gritted his teeth, scanning the chamber for cover. He spotted a raised platform at the center, covered in ancient carvings. Symbols glowed faintly, like they had been waiting for this very moment. "Then this is where we make our stand," he said firmly. He helped her onto the platform, her body trembling with pain and power. Her glow spread across the carvings, awakening the symbols. The entire chamber lit up in soft blue light. Daniel raised his weapon and faced the tunnel entrance. He could already hear the enemy marching closer. Shadows flickered against the walls, their voices shouting orders. The ambassador cried out in pain, her hand clutching tighter to her stomach. "Daniel," she gasped, "you must protect us no matter what. If I fall, promise me you will carry the child." Daniel's chest tightened, but his voice was firm. "I promise," he said. He would not let them take her. Not the child, not their future. The first wave of soldiers burst through the tunnel. Weapons blazing. Daniel opened fire, his shots precise and deadly. The chamber thundered with noise, light, and death. He moved like a machine, but his heart burned with fire. He was no longer just a soldier. He was a father defending his family. Behind him, the ambassador's cries grew louder. Her body shook as waves of energy spread from the platform. The carvings pulsed brighter with every heartbeat. Then, with a final cry, the chamber exploded in blinding light. The soldiers froze mid-step, their weapons clattering to the ground. Daniel shielded his eyes, but through the light he saw a small form in the ambassador's arms. The child had been born, glowing softly like a star wrapped in flesh. Its eyes opened for the first time, strange, luminous, neither fully human nor alien. And in that gaze, Daniel felt something stir deep inside him. A force, a power, beyond anything he had known. The ambassador looked down at the child, tears glistening in her glowing eyes. "It is alive," she whispered, voice shaking with awe. "Our child. Your child, Daniel." The soldiers at the edge of the chamber stumbled back in terror. One dropped to his knees, shouting in his language, "The prophecy! The child of two worlds is born." Some fled in panic, others stood frozen, afraid to fire. The glow from the child spread across the chamber. The walls hummed with ancient power. Even the dead carvings seemed to breathe again. Daniel stood beside the ambassador, weapon still raised, but he realized the enemy wasn't moving forward anymore. They were afraid, not of him, but of the child. The ambassador held the newborn close, her voice trembling. "This child carries destiny. It will decide if our worlds fall into war or rise together in peace." Daniel lowered his weapon slowly, staring at the small glowing life in her arms. His heart pounded with fear, pride, and something he had never felt before. "Hope," he whispered softly. "Then we'll make sure it lives to choose." The chamber trembled again, but this time not from explosions. It was from the power of the child, and every soul in that place knew the destiny of two species had just been born. The chamber glowed with the light of the newborn. The hybrid child rested in the ambassador's arms, tiny yet radiant. Its skin shimmered with soft patterns like hers, but its eyes shone with a strange human fire. Every soldier who had come to kill them now stood frozen, their courage shattered. Some dropped their weapons, others fell to their knees, whispering prayers. Daniel stood tall beside the ambassador, his weapon lowered but ready. He scanned the chamber, heart pounding. The enemy had expected to find weakness, but instead, they had witnessed something beyond their control, a prophecy reborn, a future they could not stop. The ambassador cradled the child close, her voice shaking but strong. "They fear what they do not understand," she whispered. "But this child is not their curse. It is their chance." Daniel nodded, his jaw set. "Then we'll show them. We'll prove this child isn't a weapon. It's a bridge." A soldier stepped forward cautiously, trembling. His voice cracked as he shouted in his language. "The prophecy speaks of destruction. If this child lives, it will end us all." But another soldier, younger, pushed past him, his eyes wide with awe. "No," he said firmly. "The prophecy says the child will decide. It is not doom, it is choice." The chamber filled with murmurs, fear and belief clashing in every voice. Daniel raised his weapon slightly, forcing silence. "Listen well," he said, his voice carrying strength. "You can choose fear and war, or you can let this child live. If you kill it, you kill your future. If you protect it, maybe both our worlds survive." The silence was heavy, but the soldiers did not move closer. The glow from the child pulsed like a heartbeat, filling the chamber with calm. Even the fiercest warriors lowered their heads. Some fled back into the tunnels, unwilling to face the weight of prophecy. Daniel turned to the ambassador. She was pale, exhausted, but her eyes shone with fierce determination. "You've given them something they can't erase," he told her. "They can't bury this truth again." She smiled faintly, cradling the newborn. "Not this time. This child's light will spread, even if we must fight every day to protect it." The sound of heavy footsteps echoed once more. From the far tunnel, the council elders themselves appeared. Their cloaks gleamed, their faces carved in stone-like anger. One pointed at the child with trembling hands. "Abomination," he roared. "It must be destroyed before it corrupts us all." But another elder, her voice soft and steady, stepped forward. "No," she said, her eyes fixed on the newborn. "This is not corruption. This is renewal. We can no longer deny what our ancestors hid. The child is proof. Our fear has chained us too long." The council divided in the chamber, some shouting for death, others for protection. Daniel stood between them all, his weapon firm, his voice sharp. "If you want the child, you go through me." The ambassador lifted the newborn higher, its glow washing over the arguing elders. The chamber fell silent as the baby opened its eyes again. For one fleeting moment, everyone felt the same thing. "Peace," the ambassador whispered, her voice like a vow. "This child is destiny, not mine, not Daniel's alone, but for both our worlds. Protect it, or lose everything." The elders lowered their heads, divided but shaken. No one moved to strike. No one dared. The prophecy had become real before their eyes. Daniel exhaled slowly, his body heavy with exhaustion. He looked at the child, then at the woman who carried it. For the first time since this nightmare began, he allowed himself a small smile. "This is only the beginning," he murmured. The ambassador met his gaze, her eyes glowing softly with tired hope. "Yes," she whispered, "the future of two worlds begins here, and in that hidden chamber, with the child of two bloodlines cradled safely between them, a new destiny was born, one that would change the galaxy forever."